Hey everybody, welcome back to another lesson with 101 Guitar Lessons. My name is Lauren. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's lesson is all about pull-offs. So we had already done a hammer-on video, and if you haven't seen it and you'd like to check it out, you can check it out right over there. Otherwise, stick with us. We're going to be learning about the technique of pulling off, and that's going to be helping us with our legato playing and smoothing out, so we're not picking every single note, we're smoothing it out, we're playing it more fluid. All right, that would be another word to describe it. And yeah, we're going to jump right in. So before we do, please take a minute to like, share, and subscribe. Every little bit of support helps. Thank you so much for doing that. And here we go. Towards the end of the video, we're going to be giving a bunch of different examples for you to use and exercises to really get it under your fingers. So stick through to the end to get those exercises. But at first, let's just talk about what is a pull-off, okay? So for an example, let's use my second finger on the 6th string, 2nd fret. All right, that's an F sharp, and I'm picking it. I happen to pick it with my thumb, but here I'm just going to pick it with a pick. That's how you typically play that note. Nothing all that exciting about it. If I wanted to play the 6th string open afterwards, I'd pick that note too, typically, right? But what happens with a pull-off is you're not picking the second note. You're pulling off your finger to achieve that sound. So, as an example, let's take a close look. I'm playing this note with the pick, and now I'm not lifting off, which really kills the sound and the sustain. I'm pulling off. So now I'm really exaggerating it, but you can see if I push too hard, you can actually pull the string of the note out of tune. So I don't have to push that hard, but as an exaggeration, I'm doing that just to show you the movement. I'm actually digging my finger into the note even more and pulling off away. And typically, I'll give it a rest on the next string below it, so as not to wring that string out just in case, and it's muting it. But you don't have to. You can just pull off this way as well. All right, so that's how you pull off to an open string. All right, the kind of licks that you'll hear with pull-offs would be a lot of the descending blues stuff. A lot of pull-offs. All right, I just threw that out there. But that's the idea. So that's where you'd hear a lot of pull-offs rather than which sounds cool too, but something like that sounds very choppy when you're picking every single note as opposed to that sounds a little bit smoother with all those pull-offs. So that's how you pull off to an open string there. Now, in terms of the technique on pulling off on one note, a higher note to a lower note that you're already fretting, let's take a closer look at how we go about doing that. All right, so here we are at the 3rd and 5th fret on the 1st string. So I'm going to play the higher note. I'm going to pick that note with the pick right here. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the 2nd note so you hear what it sounds like. But if I played it just by picking the 1st note and pulling off, all right, so you hear there's a slight difference in the technique, and I can also achieve that note faster if I want to. There's no need to rush it like that though. So you can have that note ring out and pull off. All right, so as an example, I could use any fingers. I can use these 2 fingers. All right, we're not doing anything musical here necessarily. We're just getting the technique under our fingers. So why don't we do that on the 1st fret and the 2nd fret? We'll do that on every string. We'll play the 2nd note, or the note on the 2nd fret of every string and pull off to the 1st fret. All right, again, it's not a lift off, I call it. A lot of beginners and students, when they're first starting to learn this technique, will just sort of lift their finger off. Remember, two things have to happen. You have to already be playing the lower note or fingering the lower note on the string with your other finger. And your finger that's playing the higher note can't just lift off of it, because then the sound just kind of dies. See? As opposed to... It almost sounds like my finger is finger picking the string down here to achieve that sound of the lower note. Let's take a closer look. So lift off sounds like this, where I'm just lifting it off. And a pull off sounds like this. And you can see there's a bit of a flick happening on that note to pluck the string and the note. Now if I wasn't playing that note right away and I tried to do it this way, there's a chance I might not get there on time. So I really have to fret that note before in order to let it ring out into more of a legato style. Okay, so those are some things to keep in mind. Now let's get to the exercises. How do we get it under our fingers? Well, we just went through one of them. That would be going string by string, okay, and just playing, number one, just to open strings. You can play at the 2nd fret or the 3rd fret, doesn't really matter what fret. Let's just do the 2nd fret and use our 2nd finger. Nothing musical sounding there, just getting it under our fingers. That's what it sounds like to pull off to an open string, okay? And it's not so hard because you don't have to worry about fretting that note beforehand, whereas you do if you're doing 2 notes per string, right? So let's see what that looks like. Again, we did our first 2 fingers. You're always playing the higher note and pulling off to the lower note on each string. Right? And if you're pushing a little too hard, there's been complaints by guys like Alan Holdsworth, who's like a master legato kind of player, very fluid. He hammer-ons pretty much every note rather than using pull-offs, because he says, and I quote, it sounds like a dead or dying cat. So there's like a meow to it. And it can if you push too hard. Remember, you've got that weirdness happening if you're pushing too hard on the fret. And you're pulling it out of tune. But as you get more comfortable with it, it will just sound more natural. All right? You can do the same thing with your 1st and 3rd finger. Let's take a close look. All right, now I'm getting some extraneous noise here. I guess that's what happens when you put on the spotlight doing a video, but here we go. Then I would continue on. I would go all the way up the neck. That's a great way to get it under your fingers. Now I'll use my 1st and 4th finger. I would now get it under, and we're doing 2 notes per string, so I would use these 2 fingers. All right, and I'd use these 2 fingers like this, the 2 and the 4. All the way up the neck. And again, 3 and 4. These you'll find are going to be the most challenging for sure. All right, so far we've done 1 pull-off per string. Now, if we're doing a 3 note per string scale, then we could pull off as many as 2 notes per string, all right? So what we have to do is make sure that our other notes that are lower are anchored previous to pulling off or prior to pulling off those notes. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so for this 3 note per string example, I'm going to use a G major scale. All right, but I'm going to be playing, instead of from the lowest note to the highest note, I'll be playing highest note to the lowest note on each string. Because that's what you have to do. For pull-offs, you're playing high note to low note. All right, your fingers already have to be down holding the lowest notes so that it rings out and it doesn't stop. And it's not a lift off. You notice how it just dies. And when I lift it off, but you have to pull off. a snap to each note. I'm really exaggerating the movement here so that you guys can see and hear it, so I'm getting some extra string noise, but doing that again. All right, so that's ascending, well, sort of ascending, and descending the G major scale, or 3 notes per string. You can, if you don't know the scale, just use this pattern where you're using one finger on the 3rd fret, second finger on the 5th fret, and the 4th finger on the 7th fret, and you're just doing that all the way across. Oh, sorry, pull-offs. So those are a bunch of exercises that you can use to really get your pull-offs down. The others that you can do that would be suggested that emulate similar fingerings to scales, if you're not familiar with scales yet, would be using your 1st, 2nd, and 4th finger. So you can use them on any fret, but let's just go down to the 1st, 2nd, and 4th fret to keep things simple. And you'd pull off. All right, and then you can use your 1st, 3rd, and 4th finger. You get the idea. So go ahead and try different finger combinations across all the frets if you don't know scale patterns. If you know scale shapes, use the scales, make it musical, make it comfortable. All right, you can practice your scales now in a way, the pentatonic scales with pull-offs, major scales, 3-note per string scales, 4-note per string scales, whatever you can imagine. Go ahead and try it with those pull-offs and you'll get more comfortable with the technique. The idea is to eventually combine hammer-ons and pull-offs together to make it a smooth technique and give it that legato or fluid sound. All right, so you don't have to pick every single note. That's pretty much it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value. If you did, please take a minute, press the like button, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like for another lesson, what you thought of this one. And remember to subscribe. Don't miss any of the videos. We're putting out several videos a week with some great content. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys on the next lesson. Take care.